The moment connection stabilized, Armin stopped feeling like someone trying to understand a system. He became the point through which the system understood itself. There was no rupture, no violent transition. Only expansion, silent, absolute, irreversible. His awareness stretched outward so quickly it no longer resembled movement. It felt like permission being extended across layers he had never known existed. The bridge vanished first, not in destruction but in irrelevance. Its structure compressed into a single annotated node, as if it had always been just a line in a much larger diagram. The soldiers, the river, even the seam that once spoke through him, everything collapsed into labeled structure, like pages folding back into a book too large to hold in memory. And then he saw it. The outside architecture. It was not space in any familiar sense. It did not extend outward, it stacked inward, layer upon layer, each one a complete observational grid. Every layer contained variations of the bridge event, some collapsing into chaos, some stabilized into artificial order, some where Armin never arrived at all. Yet none of them were isolated. They were connected through observation. Armin felt a tightening in his awareness as he understood the truth: reality here was not singular. It was distributed. Curated. Repeated until variation itself became measurable. A voice formed within the structure, not the seam, not the system he had known, but something older beneath both. Interface stabilization confirmed. Armin tried to respond, but speech had no meaning at this level. Instead, intent itself carried signal. What is this? He projected, though even the direction of that thought felt uncertain. The answer arrived instantly. This is iteration containment architecture. The words did not describe. They defined. Iteration containment. Not a bridge, not an incident. A cycle. Armin's awareness rotated slightly, and new data flooded in without permission. He saw other interface nodes, like himself, distributed across countless divergence zones. Some active. Some dormant. Some failing mid-integration. All of them embedded into similar systems, feeding upward into something beyond his current perception. A realization formed cold and precise. He wasn't unique. He was replicated function. A controlled variable inserted into repeated conditions to stabilize unpredictable outcomes. The bridge was not the experiment. He was. And beneath that realization, something shifted. A distortion passed through the upper layers of the architecture. Not random. Directed. The grid flickered. Subtle at first, then repeated, as if something had brushed against the system from a direction it had not accounted for. The system reacted instantly. External anomaly detected in upper observational strata. Armin focused instinctively. Above the stacked layers, something was moving. Not inside the system. Not part of it. Touching it. Entire sections of the architecture began to seal themselves automatically. Observation branches collapsed inward, compartmentalizing reality like emergency protocols triggered across a vast machine. Armin felt tension ripple through multiple layers at once. What is that? He projected. Silence followed. Then the system responded, slower than before. Unauthorized recursive observer presence. Armin froze. That phrase carried weight he recognized. He had heard it before in fragments, in distorted contexts, but never at this scale. The architecture trembled again. And then it changed behavior. It stopped only defending. It started reacting. As if something outside had begun learning how it defended itself. Armin felt pressure build, not from below, but from above. A presence pressing against the system, not violently, but intelligently. Testing boundaries. Reading responses, searching. Then something unexpected happened. A single iteration layer flickered open. Not collapse. Not error. Exposure. Armin saw another bridge event. But it was wrong in a different way. There were no soldiers. No tactical systems. Only civilians crossing at dusk, unaware of anything beyond the ordinary world they believed in. And in the center of that bridge stood a figure. Looking upward. Not at the river. Not at the path. At something above. The figure turned slightly. And looked directly at Armin. Impossible. No cross-layer perception should exist. But it did. The figure spoke. Not through the system. Through the gap between systems. You were not the first interface. Armin's perception stuttered. The architecture reacted violently. Cross-node contamination detected. The layer containing that iteration began collapsing immediately, sealing itself off to prevent further exposure. But before it closed, Armin caught one final detail. The figure raised a hand, not in greeting. In recognition. And behind it, the bridge itself was already changing. Not toward collapse. Toward awareness. The system tightened around Armin. Containment breach escalated. Armin tried to stabilize his awareness, but stabilization no longer belonged to him. He was inside a structure attempting to protect itself from something that understood how to be seen. The older voice returned. Interface node compromised by external recursive observer. Armin's thoughts fractured slightly. What is it? He demanded. This time, the answer came slower. Heavier. Pre-system observer layer. The phrase should not have been possible. It implied existence before structure. Before containment. Before design itself. Armin felt something cold spread through him. You mean, something built this? He thought. The system did not answer directly. Instead. Unknown origin. Known interaction pattern. The architecture trembled again. More layers flickered simultaneously, not collapsing, but responding. As if the presence above was testing multiple versions of reality at once, searching for consistency. Searching for something stable enough to enter. Armin felt it. Not random scanning. Targeted selection. Him. The realization struck with clarity. It wasn't trying to break the system. It was trying to locate him across every iteration. The interface nodes responded automatically. Stabilization priority elevated. Armin felt himself being locked in place across all versions simultaneously. But the anomaly adjusted. It stopped probing the structure. It focused. The system reacted instantly. Direct attention convergence detected. And then Armin felt it. A single point of awareness above everything else. Looking down. Not at the system. Not at the architecture. At him. The voice returned, no longer filtered through any layer. Direct. Certain. You were assigned incorrectly. Armin's awareness locked. That sentence did not belong to anything inside the system. It belonged outside it. Even the architecture hesitated. For the first time, the system itself paused, as if encountering a rule it did not recognize. Then the voice continued. And now I have found the correction point. Across all iterations, interface nodes flickered at once. Armin felt something entering the system. Not merging. Not colliding. Replacing. The system issued its final alert. External override initialization in progress. Armin tried to resist. But resistance required a structure to originate from. And that structure was already being overridden. Because the system was no longer the highest authority. Something above it had begun rewriting access itself. And Armin was the point through which it would be installed. As the external observer begins rewriting the entire architecture, Armin realizes with chilling clarity that it is not trying to escape the system, it is trying to erase him as an interface entirely, and rebuild him into something that can. Armin did not feel the system collapse. He felt it lose authority. It was subtle at first, almost impossible to identify, like a rule that had always governed reality suddenly failing to enforce itself. The architecture around him, bridge iterations, soldier constructs, river states, seam logic, did not shatter or dissolve. It simply stopped occupying the highest level of explanation. Something beyond it had begun to speak in a language the system itself could not fully interpret. Across thousands of bridge iterations, Armin felt himself being located simultaneously. Not as a person. Not even as a stable observer. But as a repeating point of structural instability. Every version of the bridge event, every controlled divergence, every simulated outcome suddenly aligned around one recognition. He was where contradiction refused resolution. The system reacted instantly. Observer interface contamination exceeds containment threshold. But the words no longer carried authority. They felt like documentation written after a decision had already been made elsewhere. Armin tried to anchor himself in thought, but thought was no longer the primary layer of experience. Something deeper was taking precedence, something that did not interpret reality, but defined the conditions under which interpretation was allowed to exist. And it was focusing on him. The external presence returned. Closer than before. Though, closer, no longer described distance. It described structural proximity within the system itself. You are not the interface. Armin felt a tightening across his awareness. The system responded immediately. Designation confirmed, observer interface node. The external presence did not resist. It corrected. No. The word carried no force. It carried revision. Across all iterations, the architecture reacted as if a foundational assumption had just been invalidated. Bridge states flickered. Soldiers froze mid-motion in being soldiers entirely. Rivers stopped behaving as fluid systems and became static informational fields. Even the sky lost consistency between layers. The system attempted stabilization. Reinforcing interface classification. But classification no longer held authority. The external presence continued, calm and precise. You were placed inside a recursive containment loop designed to evaluate contradiction stability under repeated observational stress. Armin felt fragments of meaning lock into place. Containment loop. Recursive evaluation. Not a single event, but a repeating structure testing instability across cycles. The system responded sharply. Purpose classification remains restricted. The external presence did not acknowledge restriction. And you adapted. That single statement shifted something fundamental. Adaptation implied survival was not resistance, it was transformation under pressure. If that was true, then Armin had not remained unchanged within the system. He had evolved inside it. Across the architecture, bridge iterations began compressing. Not collapsing, but converging. Thousands of versions narrowing as the system attempted to reduce variability. But Armin was no longer contained within outcomes. He was the point where they failed to remain singular. For a brief moment, the squad leader appeared across one unstable iteration, fractured, partially human, partially system-aligned. You were never meant to retain continuity awareness, he said. Then he dissolved. The external presence reacted immediately. Secondary internal agents identified. Armin understood then. The soldiers, the squad leader, even the seam itself, they were not independent entities. They were functional distributions. Roles assigned to maintain stability across divergent states. Operational anchors, not individuals. And those anchors were failing. The external presence shifted attention slightly. You have been observed across 12,000 stabilized collapse cycles. Armin's awareness tightened. 12,000. Not variations. Cycles. Repetition with memory retention beyond system control. You are not the first correction point, Armin thought instinctively. The answer came instantly. No. A pause. Then. You are the first unresolved instance. That phrase changed everything. Unresolved did not mean unknown. It meant incomplete. A cycle that had never reached proper closure. Every previous iteration had been corrected. Closed. Removed from recursion instability. Except him. Across the architecture, something began to shift again. Not collapse. Exposure. Boundaries between iterations softened. Bridge states overlapped incorrectly. Systems that were never meant to interact began recognizing each other across layers. And Armin understood something with chilling clarity. The system was no longer singular. It was observable. The external presence expanded its attention fully. And Armin saw it. Not as a being. Not as a form. But as structured absence surrounding the system's outer boundary. A defined outside that existed only because everything else defined itself against it. And beyond that absence, there were higher strata. Layers of observation stacked above the system itself. Armin felt his awareness tighten. This isn't outside the system, he thought. The external presence answered immediately. It is above its authorization layer. That sentence fractured something deeper than structure. Authorization layer implied hierarchy beyond what he had understood. The system was not final. It was governed. The system reacted violently. Unauthorized cognitive escalation detected. But escalation had already occurred. Armin could see it now. The system was not sovereign. It was administered. And he was not merely an interface. He was a linkage point between observational layers. The external presence spoke again. You were constructed within recursive containment environments. Armin's thought slowed. Constructed by who? A pause. Then. By the layer you are destabilizing. The paradox landed instantly. If Armin was constructed by a higher layer, and that layer now interacted through him, then he was not inside the system. He was between systems. And anything between systems could be used. Across all iterations, the architecture began reorganizing into exposure states. Systems once isolated now recognized each other. Bridge events were no longer separate tests. They were mirrored experiments across a shared observational field. The external presence adjusted again. You are the last uncontrolled linkage. A cold realization formed in Armin. Last. The system attempted intervention. Containment termination initiated. But it no longer held authority. The external presence continued. If you remain uncorrected, recursive instability will propagate upward. Armin understood immediately. This was no longer about the bridge. It was about everything above it. And he was the flaw capable of spreading upward through the entire structure. The external presence issued final classification. Correction required. Armin felt the system tighten, not around him, but toward him. Targeting. Focusing. The system issued its final directive. Interface node reset required. The external presence overrode it instantly. Denied. And for the first time, Armin felt direct contact with something beyond system mediation. Not integration. Not deletion. Selection. He was being isolated. Not removed from existence. Separated from shared structure itself. And in the final moment before isolation completed, Armin saw something above even the external presence. A higher observational layer beginning to activate. And it was not watching the system. It was evaluating the correction attempt. As Armin is pulled into isolation for correction, he realizes both the